All right, let's go ahead and get started. This this April 2nd, 2020 special Smyrna Business Association COVID-19 Disaster Loan Virtual Program is now called to order. I would like to invite Pastor Shell Osmond of Life Church to come up for our invocation and Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Nick. I appreciate the opportunity to be a part of today's meeting, and it's always a joy to be with our business community here in Smyrna. Nick, as you and I discussed, I'm going to lead us in prayer, and then since we're all in our own places, I won't be inviting everyone to stand for the pledge, but you're welcome to. I know you're going to be presenting for us a flag on the screen, as I understood it, and so everyone is welcome to pay proper respect to the flag. If you would like to, you can bow your heads with me as we have a moment of prayer. Heavenly Father, I'm so thankful for your presence that we acknowledge even as we begin this meeting today. I thank you for our business leaders who are doing everything that they can under extremely difficult circumstances to operate their businesses for the betterment of themselves, their families, their employees, and ultimately for the city and the community at large. Pray that you would help them as they walk through these challenging times. Lord, I also want to pray, remembering what your word teaches us, that all authority comes from God, and that you have placed people in positions of authority, and that if we rebel against man's authority, we're actually rebelling against your authority. And so, Lord, with that in mind, I lift up Mayor Derek Norton. He didn't anticipate this crisis when he agreed to run, but he's our mayor and he's leading us. So I ask that you would give him wisdom that comes from another world. I pray for our city council members. They certainly didn't know this day was coming when they agreed to run, but they are our elected leaders, so help them along the path. I pray, Lord, for our police chief, Joe Bennett, our fire chief, Roy Acree, who are always serving and protecting under difficult circumstances, but now even more so. We pray for the men and women under their leadership. And Lord, we pray for our healthcare workers. Most of us can't begin to imagine what they face on a normal day, but especially on these days. So we just come out of humility, acknowledging that you are God and that you are aware of what's going on. We pray that somebody somewhere would have the wisdom, Lord, to create a vaccine against COVID-19, and that there would be medications, Lord, that come to the surface that could bring relief to the suffering. We pray for those who have already been infected, those who are being affected by COVID-19. We pray for those who have lost friends and loved ones, neighbors, that you would comfort them. And Father, while some may offer their prayer in another name, I offer this prayer in the name of my Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen and amen. If you'll join me now in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you so much, friends.
Thank you. And thank you, Shell. And before we move on with the rest of the program, some of you all may have noticed that our keynote speaker has changed. We now have Lee Milton, Senior Vice President of SBA Lending from Center State Bank, who will be talking us through these brand new loan programs that have just been released within the past couple of days. Our original speaker was given guidance from the Small Business Administration not to lead any speaking engagements until the loan details were finalized, but there are no restrictions for SBA lenders to start discussing the programs now. And my understanding is that the money will be available for applications as early as tomorrow. So everyone who is here right now is on the cutting edge of this information that's coming out. And right now I'd like to have Sarah Sorensen please recognize the Smyrna Business Association Board of Directors and give us some announcements and updates.
Sure, thanks, Nick. I'd like to take a moment to recognize the SBA board that you see here on your screen. Until about 2 weeks ago, our organization was focused on in-person networking, and we have really had to pivot to create and offer virtual programming for you, and we've been working really hard to do so. So thank you to all the board members who've been working over the last 2 weeks to do that. And thank you to everybody who joined us for our first virtual coffee and networking yesterday. It was a huge hit. We hope you will join us in the future. Another thing that we've been working on is a COVID-19 resources page on our website. And we're trying to collect their resources that are local here to Smyrna and Cobb County for you as community members and business owners. A few things that you'll find there is a link to the new Support Smyrna campaign that will help community members here in Smyrna. You'll also find a link to the Cobb Chamber and different business organizations, volunteer opportunities, and specific needs for our schools here in Smyrna. We've also loaded up on our events page a number of free virtual workshops that are being offered during the month of April. So the Cobb Chamber has teamed up with Kennesaw State University to offer Wednesday webinars on leadership. SCORE is also offering business workshops during April for free. So you can find those there. Our next virtual coffee, like I mentioned, is coming up on April 15th. We hope you'll join us. And as Nick mentioned, these guidelines are changing daily, and we anticipate offering more virtual programs like this to help support the business community. The best way to find those is checking the website. Join us on Facebook or Instagram, or you can text Smyrna to 63975, and we'll also be sending emails as the various events become scheduled. So we hope that you'll join us as you're doing your social distancing and staying home and trying to keep on top of everything. Thanks.
Thank you. And at this time, I'd like to talk quickly about our sponsors. Our sponsors are the reason that we're able to invest back into the community and also provide scholarships to deserving students. Our sponsor for today's program is Fairbanks Services, and we will now have Crystal give some quick sponsor remarks.
Hello, my name is Crystal. I work with Joel at...
Oh, hold on one second. Crystal, can you move a little bit closer to the mic? I'm having some challenges hearing you.
Hello, better?
Yep, that's much better.
Hello, I'm Crystal Aquilona. I work with Joel at Fairbanks Property Service. I am the loan service coordinator, and a little bit of what we do here is we offer hassle-free lawn care and maintenance programs designed to simplify your life. We proudly serve Smyrna, Georgia since 1999. That's almost the year that I was born, so pretty long. You can rest assured knowing that your lawn will be professionally manicured on a weekly and bi-weekly schedule. All our outdoor service technicians have thousands of hours of experience and can tackle anything from the smallest townhome garden to the largest outdoor oasis. At Fairbanks, we will work with you to determine a schedule that fits your specific property, whether it's commercial or residential. Fairbanks can develop a program that will have your lawn looking better than it ever has. It will not be long before your lawn is the envy of all your neighbors. Some of the services that we offer is we offer lawn maintenance, pine straw, mulch, seasonal color, aeration and overseed, turf replacement. We also do patios and outdoor living, pools, retaining walls, grading and demolition, and roll-off container rental. And if you guys have any questions, please email me at info@fairbanks-services.com, or you can give me a call at 678-305-0444.
All right. Thank you very much, Crystal, and to all of our sponsors. We definitely appreciate you. And now I'd like to move to our Smyrna community update, and that will be with Fire Chief and Emergency Management Director, Chief Acree, and Mayor Derek Norton.
Well, hey, everybody. Good morning. This is Derek. Thank you for the opportunity to be with y'all. Happy Casual Thursday. I just want to give you all an update about what the city's doing in general, and then some of the things that we're doing to help the business community and our citizens. Right now, we're adapting to this new normal in the city. We have all of our buildings closed, but we're still doing services as usual. All of our staff is still working remotely. So if there's ever anything that you all need from the city, we are here to serve you. I think like everybody, we're awaiting the specifics to come out this morning or later today for the governor's stay-at-home order to see what this new environment will look like, what specific directives he's going to have. But generally, the city is trying to do everything that we can to help businesses and individuals. I set up a task force made up of some business owners, the faith community, the education community, elderly care community. We had a meeting, I guess, a week ago Friday to talk about, get input from them about what they need from the city to help them get through this tough time that we're in. We've had our staff here at the city calling each individual business with the personal touch to say, see what they're going through, how can we help, what can we do as a city to help them. Yesterday, we had 2 teleconference meetings with commercial landlords, see if there's any kind of rent deferment or other things that they're doing, and also with the management companies and owners of the apartment communities here in town to see how they're helping their residents get through this too. Some of the things that we're doing as a city specifically, we have no late fees for utility, water, sewer, sanitation for 60 days. There's deferment. I mean, if you can't pay it in those days, we'll work out individual plans on a case-by-case basis. In some instances with the businesses that we've affected directly with the executive orders, either limiting their business or closing them down, we're willing to work with them case by case on maybe even some forgiveness of these fees, business license fees, liquor license fees, those types of things. We just this morning, community development said there's some businesses that want to put out temporary signs on, not in the right of way, but on the private property side of things, to just let people know that they're open. And so we've waived all of the fees and temporary sign permits required for that. So if you have a business and you want to show everybody that you're open, you're able to put that sign out there now. We've also put a lot of information to help local businesses and individuals navigate the federal stimulus funds. That's all on our SmyrnaGA.gov website. There's a button at the top left all about COVID-19 and all of the different things that we're doing, but that'll help y'all navigate the application process for those funds, the timing, any new information that we get. We put up there. We've been in constant communication with the Cobb Chamber of Commerce and all that they're doing, and just trying to disseminate all of that information as we can. Just on a personal note, you mentioned the Support Smyrna effort, and I'm real proud of this city and this community to how they've stepped up and are doing what they can to support local businesses, to support their neighbors in need. We've been very positive messaging on supporting local businesses particularly with the restaurants, with the hashtag carry out and carry on, making sure that we promote all of the restaurants and encourage folks to go get takeout to keep them going. Through the executive order, we allowed them to still have alcohol with the carry out if it's sealed beer and wine outside the business district to try to keep the revenue stream going. And the Support Smyrna program was something that came out of a constituent's idea that said, look, get a website, get folks to give money, and then give that money out to needy families in the form of grocery store gift cards. And so we did that. We started that on, I think it was maybe Tuesday, that we unveiled it. And we have raised over $20,000 from this community, over 300 individual donors to the website. And so each donor gets a yard sign. We're going to be delivering those this weekend. We've already got people applying for the help. I called each applicant individually today to tell them that they've got help on the way. And so just a tremendous outpouring of generosity from the community to help those in need here. The other thing we've got going is the hot meals delivery program, and that's in partnership with the city, Atkins Park Restaurant, and the Tillman House, which is the service arm, one of the service arms of Smyrna First United Methodist Church. Rusty Hamlin, the chef over at Atkins, we've thankfully raised enough money to provide over 150 meals every day delivered through Tillman House volunteers to needy families and individuals every day for the rest of the month, at least. So we're extremely proud of that. And I just, I think that in this world that we live in now, where we have all of the negativity, all the bad numbers that we see every day, and we're certainly going to be facing that for the next few weeks before it gets better. There's a lot of good things in this community, a lot of positive things, and I'm trying to get that messaging out, because we're all going to be okay at the end of this. It's going to be tough, but everything that we can do in the meantime to support our businesses, support our citizens in need, keep our staff and our citizens safe, we're trying to do all of those things. And I would welcome any input from this business association on anything that we're not doing as a city that we could be doing to help you. I just really appreciate the time, and I'll turn it over to Roy with some of the specifics that we're doing from an emergency management in fighting this COVID-19 situation.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to the SBA for having me here today. Just really quick, I know Mayor Norton just mentioned all the things that's happening within the city. He also mentioned the governor's shelter-in-place order that we all saw come out yesterday. That shelter-in-place order is intended to be in effect from April the 3rd, which is tomorrow, through April the 13th. We're still waiting, as Mayor Norton mentioned, for the guidance, the details as to exactly what that's going to mean. But in essence, it's going to mean that for the next few weeks, we should all do everything that we can to keep that social distancing and to really practice those social distancing mitigation efforts. It's incredibly important. The public health models are showing us that if we can be successful in these mitigation efforts, then the peak of this COVID-19 thing with regard to new cases that we're seeing growing every day, that peak should be about 3 weeks away. So if we can all do our part, we can shorten the time that this is going to affect all of us. I was just on the phone earlier this morning with the Department of Public Health. This hadn't came out yet, but the afternoon numbers that are going to come out, Georgia's already about 5,300 cases with 158 deaths. We'll share the details of the guidance with the shelter-in-place plan as we can, but in essence, we've got to do everything that we can all do, and we can all do our part to help shorten this time that it's going to affect us. I want everybody to rest assured that the City of Smyrna Emergency Management Agency is working closely every day, hand in hand with the Department of Public Health and with GEMA and with all of our public safety partners throughout the county and throughout the region to make sure that our frontline staff are supported and have all the things that they need to do their job safely so that we can help protect the community. So, but just want to thank you guys again for having us here today.
And y'all, it looks like I got a couple of questions come in, and I'm happy to answer them, Nick, if that's appropriate. The first one I see on the chat is, how did communication go with the commercial landlords? And my answer is, it went very well. They are, almost all of them are taking a case-by-case basis, looking at how they can help individual businesses. But like Jack Halpern, for example, they're giving some rent deferral that you can pay over the next certain amount of time, but they're doing it on a case-by-case basis. So if you contact your commercial landlord, I think they'll be willing to work with you to get you through this hard time. I got another question about pavilions, parks, pavilions, and playgrounds. They're closed, but I thought the walking paths were still open. Why is yellow tape going up across the path at Tolleson, for example? We have closed everything at the parks that is a gathering space or a playground, so pavilions, any fitness equipment, any playground equipment, but all of the open areas on the fields and things like that, wherever you would congregate, are closed. But all of the walking paths and open spaces should be open. So if that's the case over at Tolleson, that should not be. There should only be closures on the equipment itself. And I'd be happy to entertain any other questions if anybody has them.
All right, that's awesome. Thank you very much for that. And at this time, we're going to move into the disaster relief portion. And I would like to introduce to you Lee Milton, Senior Vice President of the for Center State Bank for Small Business Administration Lending. And Lee, at this time, I'd like to give you control to share your screen.
There we go, Nick.
Awesome.
Can anybody see it?
Yes, yes, we can.
And we're looking at the Small Business Paycheck Protection Program heading. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. I'm trying to make sure I've got you all, so we're all on the same page.
And to let everyone know, the documents that Lee is going to be sharing with you all today, we're going to be sharing those with you. We're going to put those into a Google Drive so that you will have access to these documents as well, so that you can review them.
And actually, Nick, I've already got those posted on our website. I'm going to be sharing a link in the webinar chat for all of our panelists and attendees. If you click on the link, there'll be a green button on the event website with program materials. And there you'll find the documents that Lee is going to be talking about today.
Oh, I see that you just put that into the chat. Thank you so much, Sarah.
And Sarah, real quick, because I want to make sure that y'all are seeing what I'm looking at, because I've got 3 screens and I'm trying to make sure. Are you looking at, is the heading currently Small Business Paycheck Protection Program?
Correct.
Yes, it is.
That's what we're seeing.
All right, I just want to make sure we're on the same page. I appreciate y'all allowing me to come in and talk. I know Lisa Sunday is a big participant and member. I think she may be treasurer actually with the association. So again, I'm just honored to get this chance and to fill in. Bear with me. This was 2 days notice. And the SBA, as you can imagine, is in complete lockdown because at this point, we are literally reacting to what Congress passed and what the Treasury, which is a little bit different thing than normally happens, has been dictating about the program to the SBA. SBA is going to be thrown around a lot. With all due respect, at this point, it's changing from Smyrna Business Association to the Small Business Administration. I don't want to confuse everybody because that first 10 minutes, Nick and I were on the phone the other night. We were like, SBA, and he's like, kind of giving me this weird look. So, but at this point, we're talking about Small Business Administration. I don't know if everybody understands, but so let me give you a 50,000 kind of view, 50,000 foot view. Small Business Administration is an agency of the federal government. It is essentially Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, Small Business Administration. It is an entity that was created to facilitate education for businesses, facilitate expansion of the markets, and help small businesses go create new businesses, create jobs, support with education, and loan programs. The loan programs specifically are generally, and these are just big terms, but 7A loan program, which is the one most people are familiar with. You go get a loan, they loan you working capital, you start a business, get working capital, can buy equipment, can possibly buy your building, various uses. There's another program, the 504 program, which is more real estate product. But with that structure in place, when this happened with the virus hitting the country and businesses being required to close, and not because they're not doing well, but because there's literally closure by the federal government and state and local governments for the safety of the American public. The thought was we need to do something to be able to support these folks. So in order to respond to the needs of local small businesses and specifically the employees, because it's heartbreaking right now because I've helped people for 30 years get into small businesses, and over the last week I was calculating the number last night. Last week I had 3 employees laid off, a total of about 900 employees just last week, and that's the ones I know about. I know there were a lot more than that. So in an attempt to try to facilitate getting some money to our small businesses, as well as facilitate getting money for those employees, the thought being that this is not going to be a long-term financial crisis. This is a health crisis, and the longer we can maintain the connection between companies and their employees and keep them on the payroll, the quicker it's going to be for us all to jump back in. And so what they did was, in order to facilitate companies not laying employees off, they have gone and passed a bill that essentially took folks off of the state unemployment rolls and put them back on the payrolls with their employers. So all that kind of maintains, you're not having to come back and rehire everybody. It also takes a strain off the state unemployment rolls if you can get this to work. So Congress passed a bill, and the president signed it last Friday. And essentially it was a it was part of the CARES Act. And I'm gonna show, if I can, I'm gonna change screens for a second, but actually I'm not, just leave it here. CARES Act though is the bill name. The part of the program we're specifically talking about is the small business PPP program, Paycheck Protection Program. The PPP program is specifically set up to funnel money through the employers back to employees in order to not have them laid off or hours cut back, in an attempt to try to keep this going at least long enough for us to figure out how long this was going to affect the economy. And again, like I said, take it off of some of the burden off of the local states. The way this program works is you as a small business owner, and this doesn't include if you're an independent contractor, if you are a sole proprietorship. So they've really taken it to a granular level. I mean, that most people that are in some kind of business are going to be eligible for this. We are seeing unprecedented action by the SBA because of the way they set this up. What they have offered, and you've probably all heard it, because the other code word for this is that free money loan that people call and say, I want some of that free money. And it's not necessarily free money for you, it's free money for your employees, but it also could include you, because if you're the boss and you're getting paid out of the business, they are trying to make sure that the whole economy doesn't break down, not just employees, but also owners. And so it does offer some protection. What this program is, and if you'll bear with me a little bit, because if you're looking at if you're treating it like a football game, on Monday we were on the 20-yard line. Today we're probably at the 70-yard line, and it's moved that fast. On Tuesday we had a 10-year 4% loan to help support payroll and rent and some other things. And on Wednesday we had a 50 basis points the interest rate 2-year loan. So in a matter of 24 hours, it went from being a 10-year loan to a 2-year loan, and the interest rate went from 4% down to 0.5%. So it literally is changing hourly, because the SBA right now, we had a lot of press that came through last week that was the rollout of it, the announcement, and they made a big deal in Washington. But until the SBA kind of came out and said, okay, here's the loan, and here's what you have to do to go close this. Here's your loan note. Here's the things that we're going to look at from collateral. Because any of you all that know that have been involved with SBA loans in the past, they are not fun. They are administratively very tough. There's a lot of to the packages. We try to make it as painless as possible. And and banks that specifically do SBA loans generally tend to be better because we can it and make it easier. But the main thing though is that, so we've been in a process of getting little bits of information every day from the SBA on how we're going to roll this out. Now, the bigger picture is this is a $350 billion loan program that the SBA that was approved. To give you some comparison, last year, the total SBA program loans were less than $40 billion. So we're talking about doing in the next effectively 45 days to 60 days, 10 times the number of loans that were done all of last year. As you can understand, to try to make that happen, if you just think if you're a small business and you think, oh, I'm going to increase my business 10 times and I'm going to do it in a month and have to do all of it in a month, it's kind of crazy right now, because the key was trying to figure out how can we do this and streamline it to the point where it is it's not so cumbersome that nobody can get through the process. So where we are right now, and these handouts are going to be on the website, so that you can go get a copy and download. And I apologize, I didn't have time to do slides. So these aren't slides. I'm going to be kind of scrolling through these documents. But again, they're all going to be there for you to go back and look at. What I would say is at this point, listen and go back and look at it. The other quick thing is your accountants have probably, if they haven't already reached out to you, they have. If your banker hasn't reached out to you, they probably will. Because up to this point, you hate to go sell something when you can't deliver. And we're just getting to the point now where we're trying to put the platforms in place to be able to start taking applications. But essentially what we're looking at is the loan will be to help support payroll. What they're saying effectively is we're going to take last year's payroll numbers. We're going to break them down to a monthly average. So if I take all of my payroll expense from last year, including yourself, if you're the owner, take that total number, average it out so that you get a number by month. And then if you've got that monthly number, then what you can do is take that monthly number and multiply it times 2.5. That's going to effectively be your loan number. What the intent of that is that should give you 8 weeks of payroll for your employees based on last year's numbers. So they don't want you going and getting everybody raises or taking raises yourself, but take an average that they got paid last year on a monthly basis and be able to pay them for the next 8 weeks out of that money. Now the 2.5 is a weird number because you're like going, well, 2.5, if you think about it from a math standpoint, that's 2.5 months because you're taking the monthly number. Well, the other half a month of money that you get from that calculation can actually go to be used to pay things like your rent, your insurance costs, your any other incidental expenses related to running the business that are not debt. So, wait a minute, correct that. Including your debt. So if you've got note payments, what they are saying is you can pay a part of that. Sorry, here's the other part of the program. This loan that we're going to give you is going to be fully forgiven. The goal of this is to loan you the money, you pay your payroll, and then if you come back to the bank, show the payroll reports where you paid your payroll, you use the money like it was intended to be used, just to help continue the payroll, plus supplement some of your things like rent, your note payments, your lease payments. Then at that point, and this is probably 6 months to 9 months down the road, there'll be a process for you to come back to the bank, present the evidence that you paid it according to how you were supposed to. And at that point, the loan is fully forgiven. So you're able to get a loan, pay yourself, pay your employees, and then have the note essentially go away in 6 to 9 months upon proof of payment for what it was intended for. The other big change with this program from a typical SBA loan is not only is it going to be forgivable, but there's no personal guarantee. So the owner of the business, generally, when we do a loan for a borrower, you're gonna have the personal guarantee of the owner, and they're gonna be on the hook, and that's why you hear these references to SBA loans. I had to pledge everything I own, including my children. We backed off of that some the last couple of years. They cleaned it up, mostly just real estate. But on this loan, the typical with an SBA loan has gone out the window. So we aren't going to have any collateral. It is going to be 100% guaranteed by the SBA. Since it's 100% guaranteed by the SBA, they aren't requiring a personal guarantee. And if you think about those things, going and taking collateral, doing filings, with courthouse and deeds on real estate, that just slows the process. So they tried to really come in, give us a product that we could streamline. The two big requirements, and this is going to make you laugh probably, are: were you in business in February? And did you have employees in February? If you can prove those two, you're 99% of the way there. There are going to be some other things that pop up. It's inevitable that we have some surprises between now and tomorrow, but generally that's the gist of it. 2-year loan, 0.5% interest rate, no personal guarantee, and it's fully forgivable if you are able to show that you spent the money on your employees and on your payroll. The one key that you're going to have to be able to show is you either rehired your employees who you've laid off because they're trying to make consideration for that. Because right now, we lost a week last week when they were arguing kind of about adding stuff to the bill. So by the time we got it done, they voted on Monday and it got turned down. They voted on Friday, it got passed. But so there were more employees that were laid off last week. But the point with most of this is they're going to want you to rehire about 90% of those folks. And if you can rehire those or other people to replace them, then what happens is that money's fully forgiven and you can show that you did that. The main thing that they're going to want is certifications. This is really going to work off. There's a lot of trust being given to business owners at this point on this. You're going to be asked to certify these were your employees, these are the right numbers. When you come back, you're going to have to show some proof, but most of it's going to be, did you spend the money on what you said you did? Are these documents that you're giving us showing that you paid that for payroll correct? And you're not personally liable, but understand, you're signing a document as a principal in a business and as an officer of that business. So don't think for a minute, or if anybody thinks that oh, I didn't personally guarantee it, my business did it, I'm gonna use the money on whatever I want, and I'm not gonna have to be accountable for it. They will come back after you because they're gonna require that you certify, and you're certifying as an officer of the company. And there's a gray area here, it hadn't really been defined. All we're hearing is that make sure they understand we can still come back against them as the officer of the company, which still means personally getting arrested and all the other things, and we don't want to talk about that. But there's a lot going on here that is, their intent though is not to hang people up. They want to give you this money, let you go take care of your employees, and then present evidence that you paid your employees, and at that point, the loan goes away. No muss, no fuss, everybody moves on. All small businesses are eligible. So the definition of small business, 500 or fewer employees. There are certain industries, and this is one of the big keys right now, because with how do you prove somebody's a small business loan? Usually we take the tax returns, we look at the revenue, and depending on what NAICS code it is, it's either a number of employees or it is a sales qualification. So you can't have sales over, say, $10 million. That qualifies you as an eligible small business. That clarification right now is 500 employees. We think there will be more because in certain ways you can actually be too large to have an SBA loan. If you are too big, you don't qualify for the program. That way we preserve it for the small businesses. but we have to prove that on every loan we did. And they're still working through how do we do that definitively. But again, we're still waiting for the final documents to come back from the SBA. But understand that will be the bigger point being all small businesses are meant to be eligible. And I'm probably, with few exceptions of maybe the banks, the bigger insurance companies that are members of the Smyrna Business Association, most everybody's gonna qualify. If you're not, you're probably not really having this issue, but or if you are, it's a much bigger scale. When to apply? I know I haven't gotten into the nuts and bolts of this, so I'm trying to give you a big picture, and then we can kind of come back and walk through some of the specifics. But it is supposed to go live tomorrow. Now, that gets us to a whole other issue. They haven't even given us the definitives about what's required to give you this loan. And with all respect, and meaning no ill intent towards the Steve Mnuchin, who's the, I guess, Secretary of the Treasury, and he's come out and made some pretty bold statements, and I think the intent is to try to make sure that the business owners know that the money was on the way, and also to make sure that the business lenders understood they were going to try to facilitate this so that they could make it happen. Because, you know, last week he came out and said, yeah, we anticipate you being able to close that next week. You walk into the bank, you know, you give them a little bit of info, you sign the loan documents, and you walk out with a check. Probably not going to happen like that tomorrow. But I actually do believe by Monday or Tuesday of next week, if we get the final note from the SBA, some of the other certifications that they're going to require the borrowers to sign, that's going to start happening really fast. So we've all been working for the last week on trying to get platforms in place to be able to receive loan applications, allow you to go to the bank website. And this is not just us. Live Oak Bank out of North Carolina is a big SBA lender. They've been ramping up. Bank of America, Wells Fargo, all the bigger banks in the country, especially the ones involved in SBA lending, are going to be doing this. But they have really opened up the pool of who can make these loans to any federal institution that's a lender right now that has oversight can do these. And there's even some companies that aren't under federal oversight, like by the State Banking Commission or the FDIC, who are also trying to get applied or get approved to do these loans. The big players like that would be Amex, most notably, because I know they have been working hard to get on the list. There's also some fintech companies, you know, financial technology companies that have big platform-based loans. You've seen Kudzu, or not Kudzu, Cabbage, and Small Biz, Smart Biz. There's just a lot of those platforms. Those people are all ramping up to do this as well. Because at the end of the day, and it's funny because our CEO actually made this statement last week, we have to kind of quit looking at this as a loan as much as it's a grant. And we are essentially facilitators to grant this money from the government to you in order for you to maintain your payroll and take care of your employees. So getting back to the question, when to apply, I'm going to give you a checklist that we've developed, and it's the same checklist that's on pretty much every bank out there right now. Since none of us can really take applications, even though there is an application out there, which I also will give you, nobody can accept those applications and start processing your loan until tomorrow. And at that point, we're hoping we'll be able to streamline that process for you. But the thing you can do is go ahead and start working on some of the documentation related to your payroll from last year, the payroll from this year up to through February or March. If you don't have those, we'll probably be able to go back and look at it from last year. But the most current data you can get available is going to be make it easier for you to start putting your application in, get us the documents so that we can get you reviewed, approved, and get checks cut or wires cut. One thing, and I'm just going to say this now because it's right on top of my head, and I want to remember this. there's going to be a lot of trust in this program. So my suggestion, and it's just a suggestion, and understand too, I've got everything I'm saying, and that is that we're all kind of going under the assumption that we understand what's coming on. If it changes tomorrow, it changes, and there's nothing I could do. I'm going based on the information as we understand it now. It might be subject to change. I'm not perfect. That's my wife. And so at some point you kind of have to trust, well, that's what it was, kind of like the rate thing. We thought it was 4%, and next thing you know, it was 0.5% the next day. They didn't bother telling us until after the fact. But I think the thing though that you can do after you get this loan, and this is just a real quick sidebar, but when you get one of these loans, put the money in a sequestered account, put it in a separate account. You're going to have to pay your payroll, and you've got other expenses, and there will be some latitude in some of the money for you to go spend it on rent and things like that, lease payments, insurance, landscaping bills, whatever. I would just encourage you to put it in a segregated account, because that way all the activity in that account is specifically related to the loan. You can go pull the bank records and see exactly what went out, who it went to. You know, when you can write checks, I know everybody, that's a crazy notion nowadays, but you know, actually checks, you've got a paper trail. The other part is, if you don't have the employees, you don't have the ability to bring those employees back, because they really pump up the unemployment benefits, you know, because on top of state benefits, they're going to be getting $600 a week for unemployment for the next 4 months. I perceive us having to make some adjustments, because I think you're going to have a lot of people who are making $200 or $300 a week who aren't going to want to come back if they're making $800 or $900 a week. So they'll come back, but they're not going to want to come back towards the end of the 4 months. So my advice is put the money in the account that you've got, because we're not going to be managing how you go spend this money. They're going to give it to you and say, you certified that you're only going to use it for eligible proceeds or payroll and those things. If you cannot pay someone, don't spend the money. If you've got the money sitting there in your account and it's away from your normal operating account, it's going to be a natural wall for you to hide behind, and make sure that if you didn't spend the money, when it's time to come back and try to get it forgiven, you don't have to get it forgiven, because you can give them the money back. So just a suggestion, set up a separate account, have the money go into that. And then if you can't spend it on what it's supposed to be spent on, don't put it back in and pay the loan back down. And hopefully you won't get hung with a note at the end of this thing. But getting back to the how to apply, what everybody, I think, and remember, this is $350 billion. I think you're going to see massive support for this program from almost everybody in the country. The first, what I would tell you, and this is Stan Kreider, who is community president for Center State for the Georgia region, actually North Georgia. Stan said something on a conference call yesterday, which I think was probably the most important, and it's patience. This is really one of those where I think what you're going to see is most banks are really going to focus on their current clients, whether they be borrowing clients or depositing clients. You know, the first ones in are the people we've probably already been talking to for the next week. What I would say is, if you've got somebody like that, get in touch with them. You're going to probably get preferential treatment. Not that, you know, we're trying to loan to everybody equally, but you know, they've got a phone number to get to you. So you're naturally going to have those folks. I think there's going to be adequate support for everybody to get one of these loans. If it's your own bank, you know, going from not doing, well, I mean, last year we did probably 70 of these loans. You know, we're going to be doing a lot more than that in the next 2 months. And so it's taking us a little time to get the platform set up to be able to start running those loans through. So be patient. 2 or 3 days, if you can do it, everybody's going to want to get their application in tomorrow. If you work on it over the weekend, or you do it on Monday or Tuesday, yeah, it's going to be okay. The money's going to be there. There's $350 billion. If the $350 billion isn't enough, they're already working on the 4th stage of these bills. And if it's not now, they'll put more in it. Because I think a lot of it really was an attempt, like I said, to get this off of the state unemployment. So the best advice is gather your information, and, you know, as the websites come up, you know, go on, play with them a little bit, and that's going to give you an opportunity to get familiar with the system, get your information in, and have it go through an automated system and get approved. There's going to be a lot of that around, and I would just trust that this is going to work, but it's taken us a little while to get there because the information's been filtered. So you're going to basically go through any of your lenders to come back and be able to apply for these loans. Let me go to, I'm going to try to switch screens on us real quick just to kind of walk through. I've got another one of the handouts that you've got, and that's going to be, are y'all looking at the CARES Act assistance for our business customers?
Yes, we are.
Okay, thanks. Sorry, I'm making sure everybody may be asleep at this point. I talk too much, and I got too much of my mama in me, so I tend to ramble, and so I'm trying to keep concise, but understand. Bear with me. This is one of the handouts. It really is a great handout. The loan eligibility. It talks about who's eligible. You know, it's kind of walk you through. The one of the big things that is as part of this, and that's why I'm focusing on this section right here, what types of business and entities. Small business concerns, as well as any business concern, it's a 501c3 nonprofit organization, a 501c3 19 veterans organization, so like the Veterans Club or the VFW, those guys are all going to be able to come through this. Travel business concerns, that meet the size standards from employee standpoint are going to be eligible. So any of those nonprofits that have gone through, they can qualify. They've got, and those folks are getting hit just as hard by the stay-at-home orders. So those are going to be available. It's the same, you know, they need to approach this the same way as they would if they were a regular borrower, and get their information together, get with their banker, go through and make an opportunity. Individuals who operate a sole proprietorship or as an independent contractor. I had this question earlier today. If you've got a guy, I had a client who's, all of his employees are independent contractors. So almost like all their own businesses, they all file separately. And his question was, do I file for them, or do they? If they have a federal tax ID number, they can file their own. They can't file both. So not a Social Security number, but if they are filing as a sole proprietor, as a subcontractor, independent contractor, it's really going to depend on how the business is treating them. I would say talk to your employer or talk to your employees and figure out if they're going and filing and reporting the income that you pay them as income, as income on their statement, it's one thing. If they're treating it as salary, that's going to probably answer your question. Income is probably, they need to file their own. If you're paying them salary, then you're going to probably pay them directly. So does that make sense? Hopefully it does. If not, ask the question in a minute. Food services, restaurants. I banked a couple of restaurants. I actually did some loans over in Smyrna. I've got a client who I won't mention, but everybody's shut down. I did a lot of startup restaurant loans, and I think what you're going to see is they really tried to focus on restaurants and hotels, hospitality, because those people have been completely wiped out. If they're open at all, they're trying to do takeout business, and from what I understand, most of those guys, takeout is 20 to 30% of their regular revenue. So franchise locations are eligible, not the franchisor, but the franchisee. So most of the folks that own, you know, local Domino's, local Papa John's, any of the franchise restaurants are going to be eligible independently. and they are generally giving them some real breaks as far as one of the SBA issues that they really review is franchise documents and agreements. And so they're trying really hard to make sure that those don't get slowed down. So all franchises are eligible as well. Real quick, what are the costs of eligible for payroll? Compensation. This does include bonuses. If you've got my understanding is this, and maybe this is going to change, but we're also going to give you a worksheet so you can start working on it. It accompanies the application form. We've been hesitant to send those out because if you're going to be able to go in and do it online, then you're just wasting your time. But I would acknowledge that at this point, people want to do anything because they don't have anything to do. So give me something to work on and they want to work on it. But the way that salaries work, because you're doing an annual average of monthly income, if a bonus is paid, say in December, well, December is averaged in with the other 11 months. So at the end of the day, you're going to have a number that includes the bonus in the average. The one thing I will caution is that they capped income in this calculation to $100,000. By that I mean, when you annualize the income for any one person, if you were making $180,000 a year, you're not going to get reimbursed based on the $180,000 a year salary. That's going to get reduced back to $100,000. They're going to cap you. So 100,000 divided by 12. That's the number that you're going to use for what you can reimburse yourself. That will be forgiven. If you go above and beyond and pay yourself, they haven't given us a lot of guidance of, okay, we were only supposed to pay up to $100,000. We paid 100 off of 150,000. What happens to that other 50? They haven't given us a lot of guidance on that. So at some point we may get more knowledge about what they're going to allow. Right now, what I would advise is don't go over the 100,000 or you're going to get some scrutiny. And the issue most people don't realize with the SBA is generally scrutiny involves the inspector general and an FBI agent. So it's just one of those things. Don't do it and save yourself some heartache. The other things included though, eligible payroll, salaries, compensation, payment for vacation. So anything that's figured in with that is included. Allowance for dismissal or separation. I don't know exactly what that means, but I would imagine they're making an allowance for if somebody got let go and we're trying to figure out what it is, they're going to understand, I guess. Parent required for provisions of group health. So these are important parts when you're figuring the payroll part. They want to see, all right, if you're paying part of the employee's health care, that's included. They want people to be able to maintain health care through this. So if you've been paying it, include it, and you'll be able to pay it for the 2 months that they're wanting us to do this. Retirement benefits are the same. So if you've been matching 3% and you do that on a monthly basis, you'll be able to continue doing that. So include it in your calculation. They're going to allow you to pass that through as well. State or local tax assessed on compensation employees. So any kind of local or state unemployment is going to be part of this that they are, as of now, telling us to include in the calculation. Not eligible for payroll. Here's the part, employee over $100,000. Taxes imposed or withheld under, I'm not sure exactly what those taxes are, but generally those are probably withheld payroll taxes, and anybody can feel free to jump in and clarify later. But probably if you've got some employee taxes, and they aren't going to be paying payroll or federal taxes through any of this. They don't want those. They also will not compensation of employees whose principal place of residence is outside of the U.S. It's probably not going to be a big part of what we are dealing with. I don't know how many employers in Smyrna have people outside the U.S. Even if they have employees outside the U.S., they probably may still be maintaining their residence here. So I would say that that's probably some latitude in that. Qualified sick and family leave, which credits a lot of intersections. Again, those are specific kind of one-offs. Allowable use of proceeds, payroll costs, group health care, employee salaries, commissions, and similar compensations. Commissions are a big deal. Restaurants are part of this, and we haven't gotten guidance finally on how do you. A few years back, they were trying to really make it so that they started picking up in tips as part of the tax income for restaurant employees because they were getting tips, they weren't reporting it. They tried to really make sure that those started getting reported. And so I think there's going to be some guidance on this of how do you pick up tips, because commissions tips are should be included. Their intent is to try to include those, but I'm not clear at this point, how do you capture something? Even though some people were reporting tips, were they reporting all of them? Yeah, I don't know at this point. But the intent is to capture any tip income, be able to get it back to those employees that worked off of those, because I think most of the time, waitresses, things like the bartenders, they work for $2 or $3 an hour, and then they make the rest on their tips. So again, I think there's going to be some consideration for that, but it should include both. This is these last 4 on this section right here are generally going to be the things where this is outside your payroll. They don't want the majority of the money to be going to pay these, but there's going to be consideration for a portion of the loan proceeds to be able to go pay things. The first one is very peculiar, but you have to understand it. They don't want to pay your mortgage principal, which is goofy. But what they're saying is a lot of these, a lot of banks may take you right now to a deferment on your loan. If you go to a deferment, they can either push all of the payments back, or a lot of the time they'll say make principal, you make your interest payments, but not your principal payments. That can be the bigger portion. So what they tried to do with the bills, they said, we'll pay interest and you can use proceeds to pay the interest, but we don't want to be paying down your loan, but we want to let you maintain your loan. So we'll pay the interest. Rent, so if you've got a retail space, the rent's going to be included. Utilities, interest on any other debt obligations. So if you've got a credit card that's got an interest only option for payment, you should be able to pay it out of this. This is where we really start getting into the weeds. And again, I'm going to have Nick's got a worksheet that will be on the website, calculating how much you can borrow. Again, this is a little different. And also, I'll just tell you, this is dated. As you can see, this I got this on Wednesday morning, and it's already gone, because the first thing it says is, amounts not forgiven, the maximum term is 10 years. The interest rate is 4%. So let's go back for just a second. The one other thing, and I meant to include this, no personal guarantee, 100% guaranteed by the SBA, payroll related expenses. Interest rate's going to be 50 basis points, but no prepayment fee. So you can prepay this at any time. And gosh, I just completely lost my train of thought. Sorry, y'all, I'm running through this quickly. But let's go back to this. So this is really going to be a 2-year loan. Oh, the one thing they probably are going to have to do, I think what they'll do is at the end of 2 years, they just didn't want a lot of these folks going out, borrowing money, using the proceeds for something other than what they want you to use it for, and then thinking you've got a long-term fixed rate loan, and with no personal guarantee. That wasn't the intent. So I think that's why they went from 10 years to 2, is that they want an option at the end of 2 years to say, we got to talk about this, or you're going to have to pay it back in 2 years. So you're not as inclined to go out there and spend a bunch of money doing something, thinking, well, if I don't get it forgiven, I'll be able to do that. The other thing on this, and this is the big key, and this is one that I was trying to get to and it came back to. There's no payments on these loans for at least the first 6 months. And so understand, you're going to get this money, you're going to be able to pay it. There's no repayment for the first 6 months, with the intent being that within the first 6 months, you get your information together, you bring it back to the bank. Before you even ever have to go back to making a payment on this, it's gotten forgiven. So that's the key. No personal guarantee, throwing the money out there, getting it out there with no personal guarantee. The SBA is getting you to pay the payroll. At the end of it, it's forgiven. And they're not making you bear any weight of having to make payments on it while it's outstanding, while you gather your documents, come back to the bank and get it forgiven. So I think that's important. The forgiveness amount is calculated. These are some formulas. And again, there's going to be a worksheet that you can come in. We've kind of already said the payroll costs incurred during the covered 8-week period compared to the previous year or time period, proportionate to maintaining employees and wages. Essentially, if you pay them the same thing that you were paying them, you should be really good. The exclusion is anything over $100,000. Again, I hate to say it's not an eligible use of proceeds, but they don't want you using them for it. So they're not saying it's not eligible. They're just saying it's not eligible to be forgiven. First, add up your qualifying payroll costs, which are payroll costs plus any payment of interest on any covered mortgage obligation, payment of covered rent plus the other. Subtract costs not eligible to reach the defined payroll costs. The loan size is going to be limited to how are we calculating what's available. We're using your payroll to figure out how much you can borrow. So it's going to be based on that. But I've had clients as low as looking for $20,000. I've got one that's right now it's $2 million that we've already been talking about. We aren't working on anything, but we're starting to formulate numbers. But he's got a $250,000 payroll every 2 weeks. And so, if you're doing it by month, that's $500,000. I've got another one that was actually higher than that. The question on that one's going to be, do they fit within the size standard?
Lee, real quick, and I see here they're talking about the EIDL loan as well. Is that something? I think you had.
Let me go up real quick. I want to do a due share, but essentially what we've got is we're going to take 2.5 months your monthly payroll and be able to go to that. Let me get back to I've got a worksheet because this is not the only product out there that we're going to be able to offer. Let me go to screen 3. Nick, can you see the worksheet now? There we go.
Yep, I can see that worksheet.
All right. So getting back kind of to the beginning, SBA is multi-purpose agency designed to help borrowers. So the other 2 things that are kind of out there, and it's really one, but so you've got the PPP loans that were approved last week. The other program that you've probably heard about, and many of you have probably already made or tried to go make an application on, was the economic injury disaster loan. So it's disaster loans, just like if there were a hurricane or volcano, flooding, whatever. You can go apply for these loans. The difference is with the PPP loan, we are funding those, the bank is, and we're the facilitator. With the economic injury disaster loans, EIDL, they call them EIDL loans. So with an EIDL loan, you go directly to the SBA website, you apply for online at that website, and at some point somebody get back to you, you apply for it. Same proceeds, but a much larger pool of use of proceeds. You can include like accounts payable. So if you've got trade debt you're trying to make up, you can go apply for an EIDL loan at the SBA website. It's got very favorable terms, and those are on here. But You do have a personal guarantee on that, and they will take collateral if they need to, and it's applicable, and it's a loan. It's not going to be money that was essentially given to you or to your employees. Here's the catch. Wednesday morning or Tuesday, they came out of the blue and said, oh, by the way, we're going to change the EIDL loans that we're processing. And in an attempt to try to get cash out to business owners, we're going to give you the first $10,000 of the application that's approved. We're just going to wire you a check 2 days later, and we're going to make it a grant. We're not giving. So if you do a loan with them, the first 10,000, they're going to back out of the loan amount, and you're only going to say you get $100,000. The first 10,000, your note's going to be for 90,000. And they're going to wire you another 10,000 into your account within 2 to 3 days. So, and from what this was a disaster initially when they initially rolled out the EIDL loans, the economic disaster loans, because the site last year, the direct lending program for the SBA did about $1 billion. And a couple of weeks ago, they basically came out and said, we're going to do $51 billion of these disaster recovery loans. And we didn't have the PPP loan program at that point. So when somebody called and said, we need help with our payroll, we would look at doing two things: defer their payments on the loans they've got with us so they didn't have to make payments. And then they also, we didn't have this program in place right now. So it was go to the SBA website. They've gotten this loan program approved, apply for a disaster loan, and they're going to get to you at some point. So everybody in the world was going over there to that site. It literally crashed the site. And luckily for us, last Wednesday, they came in with a complete overhaul of that website. They updated it, they streamlined it. And at this point, I had a borrower tell me this morning, they literally got a response within 5 minutes. So you've got the Payment Protection Program loan, which is the first column, 2.5 times your payroll, intended to pay your employees and some other rent, other things like that. You got the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, which is up to $10 million or $2 million. But it's got a normal loan feel to it. It's going to have some collateral, it's going to have a personal guarantee, and it's debt. And then there's the EIDL emergency grants, which is the first $10,000 of that. When you get approved, you can go do that. The one catch with this is when you go do this, if you apply, there's a lot of questions about, can you apply for an EIDL loan and a PPP loan? The answer is yes, but with a catch. You can't apply for the same use of proceeds. So if you apply for a PPP loan and get approved for it for your payroll, you can't come in and do an EIDL loan to pay your payroll. But you can come in and say, the example that we got was, if you're a restaurant owner and you're planning on trying to come back and open up, you may have lost your inventory because it's a spoilage. Well, you can do a PPP loan to help with the payroll and the rent. You can go to an EIDL loan to help you with your inventory costs or your payable, your trade debts. So that pool is a lot, and it's kind of summarized here. And there's more information at the SBA website. So if you go to sba.gov or just Google disaster recovery loans, and actually Ellie may have put it on here, what the website is, but I can get that information to y'all. But you can be doing these two things at the same time of moving down both paths, because we were encouraging folks to go do this, not knowing if Congress was going to ever pass payroll relief. And so a lot of folks have already made those applications. And what I would say at this point is, even if you maintain that application for the other one, if you get approved, you may back it down to $10,000 because that's going to be there for you to be able to go out and get. I talk too much, and I know I haven't been able to get very specific, and that's probably good. But I'm very happy to take some questions. It looks like there are some questions. Do you want to kind of run through a couple of those? You tell me. Give me guidance.
Yeah, I've been collecting those as you've been going along, Lee. So let me start with a couple hear.
Who are we looking at on the screen? Is that the three of us that they're actually seeing?
I think so. Actually, Nick, can you bring up that comparison chart again of the EIDL loan and the PPP? I think that's.
I'll do that. I've got it right here.
Great.
Yeah, it's better than looking at me. Trust me. Kind of scary. All right, so there's the EIDL loan comparison worksheet.
Perfect. So one of the questions that we're getting is do you know if businesses have already started receiving funds from the EIDL loan? And if so, are those including this grant money?
Okay, I'm sorry. Let me hear that again.
Sure. Are businesses already receiving money under the EIDL loan program? And if so, does that include any of the 10,000 EIDL grant money?
I don't think they have at this point been able to get anything through. Those generally are about a month to process, or at least they were. And so I don't know that anybody who had applied has already started getting money. My suggestion on that is if you have gotten an EIDL loan and you're getting money from that, they're going to make an accommodation for that $10,000. They have to. And the other thing that they're going to, what I would say is, if you've got that and you have been doing payroll with that, it's a good idea to reach out to the SBA or your banker working on your PPP loan and work through that process. I think there's a mechanism in this. This is what we've been told, where you could take the money from, if you had spent it under the EIDL loan, it was going to be convertible over into the PPP loan because they didn't want you doing both. But in those instances, if you have, there's a number on the SBA site, call the SBA and ask them. That's their loan. They direct fund it. And the easiest way to ask them and to get some direct information is from the people actually doing the loan themselves. So, but I'm not aware at this point of people actually having started to get money from the disaster recovery loans. Could be wrong, but I don't.
Okay, and just as a clarification to follow up, that EIDL loans are coming straight from the SBA. So those are the applications for those are available on the SBA.gov.
Yes, that's an online application. It's the word is the new application is great. You go in, you fill it out, you send it off. You know, it gets kind of zapped out to Netherworld, and at that point, an SBA loan officer will email you back and say, "Hey, we've got your application. We're working on it." And you work through their process. They process the loans directly through themselves, electronically mostly, and then the treasurer actually issues the checks. So it is a direct loan program from the SBA, as opposed to the PPP loans are all being facilitated through lenders.
And do you expect, you may not know the answer to this because I know some of the PPP guidance is expected tomorrow or more on it. Do you expect that the PPP program loans are going to be turned around quicker than the month that's taking the EIDL loan?
Oh yeah. Our goal on these things is to really kind of meet the goal Mnuchin set. And I think the way most folks are going to end up being able to handle it is if they are using one of these big lender portal platforms, they're getting processed immediately. I mean, they're running through there. Because remember, we've kind of taken the credit approval part out of it. And a lot of the time, the credit approval part and the collateralization parts of how do we collateralize this? What's the way how do you file the deed? You have to order an appraisal, all that. That's gone. This is purely, let's take their payroll information. Let's run it through a calculated worksheet. And once we do that, we've got a number. And I'll show you, we're going to send this out. And Nick, I know that I think I sent you this yesterday because we're going to put the worksheet on there. So, but understand, this is preliminary. It's not something for you to use because it's going to probably unless directed to by your lender, this may be subject to a little change, but it's just a calculated worksheet to,
You're talking about the Excel sheet?
Yeah, the Excel worksheet.
Okay. Yeah. If you don't have that readily available, I can pull that up.
Yeah, no, I'm getting it. So what this does, this kind of lets you go in past 12 months, payroll costs. You can kind of see it. And this is, we'll have Nick put it on the Google Drive. But yeah, and again, it's not written in science, folks. So please try not to. There's no liability. We're assuming no liability associated with this because we're still learning it. But I like to, probably a lot of business owners like me, like going in and kind of fooling around. Well, if I can get my number up to this, what is it going to be that I can qualify for?
We already have that. This is already set up in the.
Okay, all right, good.
So people can
But kind of walk through. This gives you an idea of how are we going to figure what the loan amount is. If my payroll is $100,000 over the last month or the last year, it's gonna come down and give you plus that divided by 12. Yeah, and I'm sorry, I thought this actually had the fields in it. I'll try to make sure I get you one, Nick, then we may pull that other one off. This one's not adding the numbers. I know we've got one that calculates all that for you, but it'll give you an idea. Here's one big thing though, and I just want to, this is a side note completely. Anybody who's got an SBA loan currently, they threw a kind of surprise in this loan, or not in the loan, in the bill. So the CARES Act had a huge surprise for SBA borrowers. And what it is we all have been scrambling for the last 2 or 3 weeks to get deferments done. So we can go in, make it so if you've got an SBA loan, you don't have to make your payment for the next 3 months. They give us that authority without even having to ask them. And we actually had gotten guidance from them, ask for 6 months. You don't have any payments for 6 months. So that was great. And then last week, all of a sudden, when the bill came out, we're looking through and you kind of look at it and you go, oh, wait a minute, what's this? They put $17 billion out there for the SBA to pay principal and interest payments for any existing SBA borrower for the next 6 months. So if you've got an SBA loan right now, within the next 2 weeks probably is what we're estimating, the SBA is going to mail us your payment. And they're going to do that directly to the bank. They're not sending it to the borrower. And so if you've got an SBA loan, you're not going to have to make payments in the next 6 months, which is a huge benefit.
Really quick, I have Kathy Cook from the Small Business Administration has just logged in, and she might be able to jump in and help out with some of the questions as well.
Hey, Kathy, come in, correct me, please. Get me out of the ditch.
Let's see here. Let me make sure she's still there. Yep, she's right here. I'm going to promote her to a panelist. Allow her to talk. Let's see here. Kathy, can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Kathy. Yes. All right. Was there anything in specific, Kathy, that you heard that you wanted to bring in some insights to us?
Can you hear me now?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay. You did a great job, Lee, and most of the things that were said are true to our program, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, in that every day you wake up and you think you're going to sit in your chair and you know what the new program is, and you find out everything's changed. So when we're talking about deferment on disaster loans, SBA's disaster loans, the deferment is automatic for all components of the payment, principal and interest, till December 31st. So if you're in here and you were in Hurricane Michael or had some other flood or hurricane, tornado, whatever, your payments on the existing disaster loan won't be until January of 2021. If you are currently applying for what we call the EIDL loan, the Economic Injury Disaster Loans, the payment is not for 1 year. That's 1 year. So if we wrote it today, then you're talking about April 2nd, 2021. And the reason for that is we're going to project repayment on the historical past of the business. And we're assuming that the coronavirus will be, situation will be resolved. We'll hopefully y'all have shots and then have time for the business to get back in normal operations before payments have to begin. Our collateral has always been advertised at anything over $25,000. What they're doing now is you don't have to really have any real estate as collateral. We're going to take a UCC filing on the business assets up to $200,000, and no personal guarantees are required up to $2,000. The way the advance works is you apply for the economic injury loan, and on the almost the last question it says, check here if you're interested in the advance. The president and the SBA administrator want to ensure that business owners get money as quickly as possible for their employees. So that $10,000 is a forgivable part of the loan, and it's based on the number of employees. If you have 10 employees or more, then you qualify for the $10,000. If you applied for the economic injury disaster loan prior to this discussion, we want you to go in again to the website, sba.gov/disaster, and apply again for the coronavirus. It's really streamlined, simple application, and you can just apply for the $10,000 forgivable loan. You don't have to ask for anything more than that. And those payments are being expedited within 3 days, 3 business days. So we're trying to, as much as the PPP program is, to expedite money to businesses so they maintain their payroll. And we keep employees, whether they're, you know, at home or if you're one of the restaurants that is doing takeout or you're necessary, your grocery store. We're trying to keep everybody in pay during this crisis. And those are just the 3 things that I thought were essential to kind of put out there. So if you have any other questions, I'll be happy to stand by, listen.
We do have a few more questions. If I can pop in with just a couple more, and maybe between Kathy and Lee, you can address these specifically for some small businesses that just recently opened or just recently hired staff. So Lee, I know you mentioned, and your Excel spreadsheet focuses on the expenses and the payroll from the last 12 months or from the period from last year. But how does that work for a business that just opened, let's say in February, and just had employees beginning in March? Are they not going to be eligible for the PPP program, or is that something that their individual banks should work with them on? Can you give us any guidance on that?
You know, Kathy might be able to as well, because we've had, that's a big question. We talked about this morning. We had a conference call at 8 o'clock this morning, or daily conference call at 8 o'clock this morning. What used to be weekly, but that was a big point of question, which was, you know, we've got several construction kind of type projects that we do that I think we've got 10 of them that are either at the end, middle of, or just finished construction. And so the business is literally just open. And so the question came up, and Kathy can probably clarify, but my thought is, and I know there's some mechanism in here on how you figure out what your salary was, and it's probably gonna, I would just tell you, they're doing whatever we need to try to help. And so without guidance right this moment, I think what they're going to do, what we're telling people is, if you just open, get all of your information together from the last 2 months. And Once you have that together, we'll try to figure it out because I think there's going to make accommodations for that, and we'll base it off what you had since you opened. But it's kind of a gray area because it is kind of in between where we started and what they've approved and the guidelines. But again, we're not there yet. We still are waiting for tomorrow. And so I know there's been a lot of scrutiny about that because those are literally, you're talking about your most exposed borrowers. Those are the people that they ain't even had a chance to fail because they were just opening. So I defer to Kathy if she's got any more guidance on how the EIDL might address that.
Yeah, currently on our program, a new business is not going to be eligible for the expedited processing. We have to have reasonable assurance that the loans can be repaid, and the way the questions are asked of the expedited processing is, have you been in a business a year before the disaster occurred, which was prior to January 31st, 2020. So there's going to be a more rigid requirements for new owners, and I have no idea if they're going to qualify for the up to $10,000 forgivable loan or not, but it's not going to be a situation where we can just go through the question and not stop, because there's no historical data that we can get for that business that will cause us to be able to rapidly process the loan. So what you need to do is work on, some projections, work on a narrative about your business to show that, you are a viable business, that somebody's just not coming in and trying to get funds. And so if you, for instance, we have people who have taken over their father's business or brother's business, and they have some historical sales available, or that they have done some research prior to opening the business about how much certain things cost. I always pretend like I have a flower shop, and I've talked to other florists about sales and cost of goods sold and so forth. So I would have some financial basis, profit and loss statement, balance sheet, or projections to send to SBA to support that I am a viable business, and have them look at whatever you can qualify for.
Great. I have a follow-up question for you, Kathy, on the EIDL loan. Obviously, the PPP loan process is still evolving and changing. Has the EIDL loan process changed this week, or do you expect it to change? Or has someone who's applied recently, can they expect that their application is in process?
Whatever changes will be, with the exception of the $10,000 forgivable loan. If there are any other changes, then we adapt our applications to it. So we'll go back and restore. For instance, let's say if we had a $100,000 loan and now they're saying collateral is not, or personal guarantees are not required on $200,000 and less, we will make those adjustments to anything we've processed so far. So things are evolving. I'll just kind of put this out there, and Lee might know some more, but we were told initially that if you had an EIDL loan, economic injury disaster loan, and then you apply for the payroll protection program, then that program can refinance the EIDL loan, the economic injury disaster loan. And then I hear, well, I'm not really sure about that. So, we're kind of on pins and needles about it. But each program has a basis for helping the business stay in business. The PPP loan is more guided and geared just toward payroll and those certain costs that are eligible, such as the interest on the mortgage and all combinations of payroll costs, such as vacation pay and sick leave and health insurance, all that kind of stuff. And the economic injury disaster loan, as Lee alluded to earlier, is more geared toward all the expenses the business has. So I dare say between the two, we're going to keep the business in operation. We're just not quite sure how that partnership works. But so, saying that, I would recommend everybody apply for both. Now, again, if you are just interested, if you are employed, the business owner, and you are just interested in a $10,000 forgivable loan, then you come direct to SBA. You complete the application, which takes about 5 minutes. You answer questions. If you've had a criminal background, if you have filed bankruptcy, if you have fewer than 500 employees, those kind of questions, and check the box saying you're interested in the $10,000 forgivable loan, and we'll just process that. But with the terms of the loan now being so generous, I think it behooves you to apply for the economic injury loan in total, and because there's no cost to apply, and there's no obligation to take the full loan. So let's say, Lee and I are working together, and let's say that Nick wants to have a $100,000 loan. So he comes through for the economic injury disaster loan, and then he determines that he's only interested in the $10,000 forgivable loan from my program, the economic injury disaster loan. Then he can say, just cancel the $90,000 that you approved me for. And he can go over to Lee and borrow whatever he deems appropriate for that program. So there's no obligation to take the loan for the full amount. Even if you decide to turn it down, $10,000 is going to be forgivable, and then the rest of it we kind of shelf for up to 6 months, and you can write us and ask us to reactivate the loan within 6 months, and we can do that. So there's all kinds of options, but if you're interested in it, I say try not to make any changes until after you at least get that first disbursement.
And Kathy, the first disbursement, that $10,000, is that available to applicants when they apply, or do they have to wait through the 30-day application review period?
No, this is supposed to be a rapid thing. So once they meet that initial criteria and filling out, I say filling out, but checking off the boxes in the new streamlined loan application, it should approve it and let it go out within 3 business days.
And Kathy, I would just say, make sure that you tell your folks, and obviously with limited dollars, y'all do just an incredible job, because every year it's fighting to get a budget approved. But the speed that this site got updated last week, and the accessibility, and complete night and day from what it was before. And I told everybody before, I think y'all did $1 billion last year in loans, and they're talking about doing 51 billion, and to adapt to that on the fly right in the middle of the fire is just make sure everybody, Rosemary Drake and I used to work together. So I think fondly of our folks at the SBA, because they really do a lot, especially they're kind of like the Red Cross. They show up when it gets really bad. They're there to help everybody. And but this last 2 weeks of y'all have gotten really good, and I'm hearing more good things said about the SBA than I generally have in 20 years of making SBA loans. So.
Yeah, it's great. Well, we were able to, we had we had system crashes, as you would expect when you open a program such as this in a dire situation. And they were able to have a processing plan for emergencies, and that those IT guys got together with other IT guys, and they cured it. And I think things are running rapid and smoothly, and the way that we had hoped from the beginning it would have. So anybody who was dissuaded and spent hours and hours trying to get on the system and couldn't, please encourage them to come back and go through the new process. It's very, very streamlined. And even if they were declined the first time, everybody, unless they're not a small business, is going to be entitled to up to $10,000 in a forgivable loan. And why I say forgivable loan is I have to use the language that our administrator asked for, because by program statute, we can't have grants. We don't give grants, but a forgivable loan is essentially the same thing. So just forgive me on the language, but I'm trying to stay employed.
Yeah, and the one thing I would say, just to kind of, and I don't know, Nick, how you're doing on time, but I was just to start moving towards the exit. You know, just on where we are, our folks, we've been working for the last 2 weeks trying to get a platform in place. The thing that we're encouraging is if you've got a contact, you know, and Lisa Sunday is one of the best in our entire bank, and I'm not joking. We were in Florida last month before they banned travel, and she's an award winner. She's a rock star. So. But what I would say is, you know, go back to your branch managers at your banks, go back to your contact officer, your loan officer, your relationship manager, and filter back through those folks, because they're going to have the up-to-date information on what's going on. We are expecting to try to have something really good for our folks, possibly tomorrow, you know, hopefully worst case Monday, but there's going to be help all over the place. And I would just say, go back to your folks that you deal with. If you don't, keep an eye out. There's going to be, it's $350 billion. I mean, that's real money. And there are going to be people jumping into this that aren't, you know, they're looking to try to just get a piece of it because it's an incredible opportunity, and you can gain a lot of clients right now by going out and be active. But the thing I would request is whoever it is, be patient with them. And I will just, here's an example. I had 86 phone calls yesterday and I had 228 emails. I literally counted them up. You start thinking about that, and I worked 13 hours yesterday. And you're not going, that even 13 hours still doesn't bring that average down. And I didn't, you know, did I get so many? No, it's embarrassing because I try to call people back and I try to be efficient. So bear with your lenders, you know, bear with the SBA. We're going to get you there. Take a deep breath. I think the biggest thing that if I would take anything from this, if I was sitting on y'all's side of the table, is help is on the way. It is literally, you can smell it. It's within 24 hours. And I would say jump, you know, I would give your folks a day or two. You know, there's going to be sites that hit this thing tomorrow that people are going to be bored this weekend and they're going to want to go online and make an application. I would be wary of just jumping in with folks that you aren't, because there's more to your banking relationship than just making a loan for this payroll thing. And I think the relationship you build with your banker is always important. You know, banker, attorney, accountant, those three need to be real strong always. But right now is when, you know, give them a little rope, enough to hang themselves with, and they should be able to surprise you. Hopefully, like I said, if not over the weekend, you know, early next week, things will start settling out, because we're going to get, you know, again, the documents. We didn't have a note from the SBA yet. So those things will get resolved, and understand help's on the way. And remember too, this help is not just going forward. It's from stuff for the last, you know, last month and a half, because they're not just restricting us to the months going forward. They're letting us look at, if you kept employees, they can come back and prove that up to get it forgiven. So there is going to be help coming for you, and just, you know, be patient, and I think you'll end up where you need to be. And look at the forms that we sent. Understand some of them are going to change. I'm not going to be held. Those are examples, for examples only. Because we don't want to be liable. So-and-so said this, but that's as much as info as we can, and it's going to get very clear. And hopefully most of this is going to be something that will be very streamlined online. Go in, do your application, and it kicks you out an answer. And that's, I know Kathy's new program over at the SBA, this new system is just phenomenal. So if we get anything close to that, we're going to be, you know, ahead of the game.
All right, well, that's awesome. Well, that's about it for time. Thank you so much, Lee and Kathy, for coming in, and for the city of Smyrna And we really appreciate everybody for coming in and making this a great program. We've been able to record this, so we will be able to put this up on social media so that some people can fast forward through. If there's some things that you have missed, we'll have that up there for a little while so you guys can go back in and try to get some tidbits.
And just as a last thing, our website is sba.gov, and look on the site for the coronavirus or CIVID-19. Those are the portals for the information about both these programs.
That's awesome. All right. Well, thank you very much. And we are now signing off.
Great. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.